What would you do if you found the spark, a magical and powerful stone that has the world in its destiny? Would you sell it? Would you try and use it? Or would you try and return it to whence it came? Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp. My name is Ken Boyter and we are exploring the realms of fantasy. Today we're going to be taking a look at Underforge by Jonathan Bush. Now this is a self-published book, and in actual fact it's not quite published yet because this is an advanced review copy that Jonathan very kindly sent me, and he has got a Kickstarter campaign that I think is actually happening right now by the time this actually goes out, so you can check that out. Go over to Kickstarter if you want to check it out and see what it's all about. But you don't have to do that just yet, because we're going to be checking it out ourselves. So let's just find out exactly what Underforge is all about. Underforge. What exactly is it all about? Well, the setup is fairly simple to begin with. It is about a boy named Squall Steampipe and his pet sheep, Big Kev. Yes, he has a pet sheep. And they live in a sleepy little village named Squirm Hollow, and they live with his dad. His mum has left them. They don't really go into details. The author doesn't go into details about why or how or exactly when, but you kind of know that that's happened. And obviously Squall is a little bit upset and a bit sad about that, and he also, he does have a good relationship with his father, but it's not necessarily an emotional one. His father does seem to be quite practical because he's an engineer. He is head of the pipes, of steam pipes, and hence his name, Steampipe. And he says to Squall one day, "Why don't you come to work with me? I've got a job just for you. I'm going to train you up in the family business, and one day you can run it, and I'll be proud of you." Well, because not a lot's happening around the village, Squall agrees, and he thinks it's going to be quite an adventure. Wow, oh yes, he does have a bit of an adventure, because it doesn't turn out to be an adventure straight away, because he's not too happy. What his dad actually wants him to do is to go into a pipe and clear the blockage out. There's no other way that this can be moved, and so therefore he sends his own child. It's like Victorians, isn't it? With the chimneys, up you go, do a bit of chimney sweeping. So in he goes, and yes, he does find the blockage, but it's not exactly what he thought it was going to be. They thought it might be a large dead rat, which again isn't very nice, sending your own child up to remove a dead rat, but it isn't. It's actually a goblin named, I've forgotten the name, Grotsnarl. That's it, Grotsnarl. And the goblin is stuck, and he's obviously a little bit shocked to see Squall coming along the pipe, and then poking him with some sort of contraption to get rid of the blockage. And what happens is they both actually fall out the other end of the pipe, so away from his dad. But not only do they both fall out, there's something else that falls out, and it's a little stone, like a little gemstone, otherwise known as the spark. So Squall has accidentally found this really pretty rare gemstone that at that point he doesn't know just how important and how powerful this little spark is. Somebody who does is a villain, Boo and Hiss. Now the villain, he is the Grand Combobulator, Finca Bert Tumfin. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he has been looking for this spark because he has already in possession of it and it goes missing. And he wants it back. And that is basically the setup. So it's about the Grand Combobulator trying to get back this spark. But he's not the only one. There's someone else. There's a Lord Cesspit. He wants the spark as well. He has heard of these rare sparks, and he finds out that there is one being discovered. And so he is also on the trail of Squall and Big Kev, and also Grotsnarl, because they kind of team up. And so therefore that leads us off into a big wild adventure. Now there are various themes in the book. There is the coming of age theme that runs all the way through it, and it's, you know, obviously it's about a boy, I think he's about 12 or 13, maybe 14, and it's, you know, that cusp of becoming, you know, from a child to a man, or a, you know, child to a woman. And so you've got that coming of age theme that runs all the way through it. And there are various different challenges, various different situations and decisions that Squall has to make, because he's been sort of ripped apart from his family, from his dad. So he now has to become more independent. He has to learn about his own instincts and trusting people and looking after himself. So you've got that runs, that to me is the main theme that runs all the way through. And it is very nicely explored. There's a moment in the book where Squall actually declares, you know, what I've just been through, I am now a man. I feel like I'm a man. I've achieved manhood. Now, whether or not he has, I mean, you know, it takes a little bit more than just, you know, I don't know, say a 6 months worth of events to change someone fully into a man. Obviously, it's more of a lifetime. And do we ever really totally fulfill that? We get wiser, I guess. Hopefully we come from a naive state to a more profound and wiser state of being. But there's a moment there where you do feel that that's actually what's happened, because you can see, obviously you've just been through all the events with Squall as well, so you can actually feel, yeah, okay, that's justified. I can see why, I can understand why he's going to feel that. There's also the theme of loss. Now, as I said earlier, he has lost his mother in some respects. We don't quite know where she is or what happened to her. So there's that mystery there, there's that unknowing loss. And there's also, I guess, then you've got that other mixture of emotions that are going to be running through that. There's going to be hope. One day she'll come back, surely. Or there's the, you know, if you don't know where somebody is, then there's that terror, there's that fear of, well, what's happened to them? Why don't I know? And so I guess you never get closure. At least if you know what's happened to somebody, then you will know, you know, you can kind of start to build through those emotions and go through those emotions to actually start healing. So that's quite a difficult, it's quite a tricky theme for Squall to kind of deal with, and it does crop up quite a few times as well. And he does have some nice flashbacks as well to when he's younger, and he also has these dreams all the way through as well, all these visions. And so again, it's some, you know, you feel like it's his subconscious trying to tell him something. And then I'm sure there's a few more themes in there, but the other main sort of theme for me was power. You've got this spark, which is a very powerful item, and therefore power-hungry people or creatures are going to be attracted to that. Power attracts power, and power also preys on the weak. And that's how they become powerful. So you've got the bigger, grander sort of theme, if you like, that runs all the way through it as well, of power. Now the characters, yes, they are well portrayed. They're very likable. Instantly, you know, you do warm to Squall and, you know, Big Kev, the pet sheep. And you've got, as I say, the goblin. He's, you know, there's a lot of fun in the characters, and there's there seem to be, you know, they are. A lot of them have that realistic feel. You do feel like they're fully developed. There are a few that you feel could be developed a bit more, and I would say, you know, the main, you know, the main baddie, the main villain, the combobulator. I think he could have been a little bit more rounded. He kind of fell into the bit of a cliche of, you know, the arch villain, that type of villain, you know, almost pantomime. But then, you know, I kind of forgave that because it sort of suits the tone of the book, because it is meant to be a very humorous book as well. So I can kind of see where it fits in. And because, you know, Squall and initially when you meet his dad as well, they're very well-rounded characters, and there's the other side characters as well. They're very well-rounded. You can kind of forgive the ones that aren't massively well-rounded, because obviously you've got other characters that are, and you become more attached to them, you become more emotionally attached to them. They are, and I particularly liked the Flagon Knights as well when they crop up about halfway through the book, and it really reminded me a lot of Monty Python and the Time Bandits, those sort of characters, and they really worked well. There was, I think there's about 6 of them, and they really bounced off well, and Jonathan Bush really handled that well, you know, because if you've got a group of characters to write for, it's very easy not to give them distinctive voices. They can maybe blend into one or two characters. They did a very good job of handling that. So my other point about the characters would be that some of them, though, didn't translate well being a distinct individual character. And I was reading it through and I was thinking, why is that? What's bugging me about some of the characters? And then it was near the end of the book that I realised it was, yes, the humour that is very present in the book, certainly in the first half of the book. It's almost like that's clouding the character development of some of the characters, because Jonathan Bush's own comedic voice seems to be infiltrating not all of the characters, but all those characters that it's there, and therefore they don't become distinguished enough from each other. Now, when the humour starts to die down a little bit, it does start to fade, you then get more, the characters become alive. They almost like they can breathe, because they're not trying too hard to be funny. And I think if I was going to say there was a criticism with the humour, that the first half of the book, it was a little bit full on and let's try and put as many gags in there as possible. And it was a little bit overkill for me. I just wanted it to be turned in a notch, because I thought maybe some of the jokes were trying too hard. But that's not to say they didn't work. Some of them worked better than others. Some were more amusing. I laughed out loud about once, which isn't too bad. But most of it I kind of enjoyed. It was just like that light-hearted kind of humour that you can just have a smile to and a little chuckle. The plot and the story, again, I felt some of it wasn't overly original, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, you know, we all get influenced by other things, don't we? The influences I found, it was definitely Lord of the Rings. You know, you've got the spark, which ultimately is the ring, because the spark, like the ring, starts to kind of corrupt the bearer, you know, the carrier of it. He has to return the spark, just like, you know, Bilbo Baggins has to return the ring. And also Squall does remind me of Bilbo Baggins, because he's a character that's kind of slightly reluctant hero and, you know, enjoys his home comforts, hasn't been out of his village. So there's a lot of similarities there. And of course you've got the big evil villain, you know, which is very similar to the Lord of the Rings. And there's also an even bigger villain that's kind of beyond this world, if you like, beyond the world that this is set in. So there's a bigger threat as well, which is very much like Lord of the Rings. So I also felt there was a Terry Pratchett influence, as I say, with the humour. It was very, you know, it was similar. And again, I think I remember reading, I haven't read Terry Pratchett in years, but I do remember again with Terry Pratchett that sometimes the humour kind of got in the way. But I'm going to be reading all of the Terry Pratchett Discworld books as well, so I'll be interested to see if I feel that again. So again, I think it's very difficult. If you're going to write fantasy humour, I think you have to kind of be very careful with the balance of the humour versus the stories and the characters. And also Monty Python, as I say, Monty Python's Time Bandits is that similar sort of slapstick humour, wordplay, puns, and also looking at the world at a tilt, at a sort of slightly obscure, different angle. It's all very nicely done. And I must admit, though, when it faded down, I've said it again, when it fades down sort of towards, you know, near the middle of the book, I felt that's when it really does come alive. And I must admit, I did enjoy the second half of the book more than I did the first half. The quality of writing, very good, very solid. He does manage to do the show not tell rather than tell not show, which is very, very impressive. That's good, because obviously it's a book. You want to put your readers in the position of your protagonists. You want to know what they're feeling, what they're seeing, what they're doing, their action, and you do get that. You get the sense that you are there, you're on this journey, and it's going to be one hell of an adventure. And so there's lots going on. It's very fast-paced, and again, I think the first half, I don't know, 5 chapters, it does feel a bit jumpy, and I think that's to do with the humour. And I think it's almost like the writer is trying to find his feet, you know, and settle into the story, and that's totally understandable. I get that, you know, with my own book, you know, you kind of need to really rework, I think, especially the first half of a novel, because you are trying to find your voice, you're trying to find what you're trying to do with the book, and it's emerging, and you still have to chip away at it. So once you get past, I guess, about 50, 60 pages, it then really starts to settle down, and it really does flow. The writing does flow. It's very clever in places. I enjoyed the humour. As I say, it wasn't like a big laugh out loud, but it was amusing. It was there. It rumbles along in the background. Overall, I did enjoy it. It kind of had that. It had that sort of epic going on a quest feel to it. But it also had a light-hearted note that ran all the way through. But the author was very clever with the balance of it, because there was a really nice touch with the lead knight, the Flagon Knight, who he starts to tell his backstory. And that was a really nice way, really brought you in, you really connected emotionally with this knight. It's quite a sad story. And so there was no real humour in that bit, but the writing was beautiful. And I think I kind of prefer it when as I say, I keep saying this, when the humour was toned down a bit. That's not to say you shouldn't get rid of the humour, because he can obviously write a joke, he can obviously write funny situations. It's just that I didn't need it so, machine gun-like. And so there was beautiful balance, certainly in the latter half of the book, where you do get the jokes, but also there's a nice serious flavour and feel to it as well. There was some lovely twists as well. There was some things like, I didn't see that coming, which is always nice. The characters, as I say, I like the characters, and there was some good knockabout characters like the Flagon Knights. They were good fun. And also, I like the way that the story unfolded. It did seem to wrench up, is that a correct word? Ratch up, I think that's the word, isn't it? Yeah, the suspense was building. It had a purpose. It needed, you knew where every character was going. You knew what their motives were, which is always important. And then the climax was nice. And then this is book one, actually, of a trilogy. So you kind of, he ties up a lot of things. And there was some surprises at the end as well. I wasn't expecting it, the big sort of battle. There was some surprises there, which was very nice. And then, so this is a trilogy, so there's a door open to book two as well, so you kind of know where you're going with book two. So I think Jonathan Bush, the author, manages to create a fantasy, humorous book that has just enough seriousness to not make it frivolous and kind of throwaway. There's enough emotion in there for the characters for you to get your teeth into it. So I'd recommend it. As I say, I do believe there's a Kickstarter campaign going on. So yeah, check that Kickstarter campaign to see if this is the self-published book for you. Underforge from Jonathan Bush. I believe it's his first novel, debut novel. I might be wrong with that. And the other thing is that he has got a website where he's got beautiful illustrations. He does his own illustrations as well. So he's got all the most of the characters from the book are up on his website. And he also sent me some illustrations as well, digital illustrations of the characters, just so I can get a more feel for it. And a lot of those illustrations are up on his website as well, and I'm sure they're going to be on the Kickstarter campaign. So I'm not 100% sure if he's going to turn it into a graphic novel or not, but he's a very talented artist as well. That was Underforge, book one, as I said, of a trilogy. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, we do have lots of other reviews on our YouTube channel. We've got book reviews, we've got board game reviews, we've got film reviews, we've even got how to write fantasy. It's all fantasy related, it's all fantasy goodness. Until next time, remember to keep it real, especially if you're a spy.